What started as just an idea 10 years ago has evolved into a repeatable framework that has now generated over 142 million in revenue for myself and my clients collectively. And it's not chance, it's not a flash in the pan strategy, this is proven. I've spent more than 6 million testing this inside of my own businesses, and I've applied it with clients across hundreds of different niches and industries. And through all that testing, refining, and real-world application, this simple idea became the framework my entire business is now built upon. And in this video, I'm going to walk you through it beginning to end. If you're hosting a training, a webinar, talking on stage, or even filming a VSL, you need a structure that can help you encapsulate the attention of your audience and lead to conversions for your business. And this framework will tell you exactly what to say and when to say it if you're trying to turn a prospect into a client as quickly as possible. So before I can teach you the specifics of exactly what to say and when to say it, we need to first understand the overarching structure that we're working with here in a presentation that sells. The first is setting the stage. The second is the wow, not how content. And third is a call to action. Now, this is in a particular order by design. And again, it doesn't matter what presentation you're delivering, we've got to start with this. The setting of the stage is where we are making it clear to the audience that they're in the right place at the right time, listening to the right person. If you jump straight into the training, you might have good intentions. You want to provide a whole ton of value, but you're missing a key ingredient, which is they need to first understand that they're in the right place to get that value. Because if you don't set the stage right, no one will ever hear the training that you had prepared, because they will leave just as quickly as they arrived. If you're at a seminar, they will walk out the door. If they're on a webinar, they'll press that little X and leave. If they're watching a VSL, they will pause and never come back. So we've got to set the stage, and I'll tell you exactly how to do that in just a moment. Once we've set the stage, and by the way, that takes around about 15 minutes, okay? About 15 minutes. Then we move to the training. Now, this is where you have the opportunity to position yourself, what you do, how you do it, and then teaching and providing some value. But I've got a concept that I call the wow, not the how. And this is a proven formula for how you can teach incredible stuff and leave an audience hanging on your every word, desperate to work with you. But the kicker is then they actually do proceed to work with you. Because sometimes, and I imagine you've experienced it, you give your best stuff, you produce some amazing content, and then when you make the call to action, crickets. No one's taking action. And you're thinking, what went wrong? You probably taught your incredible training in the wrong way. What you need to do is use the wow, not the how. I'll teach you about it in just a minute. Then, of course, it leads to the call to action. We've set the stage and we've got people to understand why they should stick around. We've done the wow, not how content, which really varies in length. But for this example, we're going to use 30 minutes, which is typically what I like to do. And then we deliver the call to action, which takes about 10 minutes. And we will actually have people taking action because you did these first two in the right way. So let's get more granular now, and I'll tell you exactly how to do these things. Now, there are 10 very specific things you should do to set the stage properly. I'm going to focus on the core 4, but I want to give you this, because this is basically the framework that walks you through exactly what we're going through here, telling you exactly every single thing you need to do from start to finish. And so this is my free gift to you. There's a link in the description box. You can just tell me where to send that. We'll get it straight over to you. You should definitely download that so you can follow along. I'm going to focus on the 4. So the first one is, we call it the big hook. When someone first arrives at your presentation or video, whatever it is that they're watching, the last thing you want to do is start talking about yourself, start talking about the weather, start engaging with the audience and finding out where they're calling in from. It's a terrible way to grab their attention. We need to make sure they understand exactly where they have just arrived and that they're in the right place. So we hook them from the very off. So I wouldn't start a webinar saying, hey, it's great to have you here, and I was preparing this as I was walking my dog this morning, and I'm really excited that you're listening to this. And like, some people have left already, okay? We need to start the webinar or presentation by saying, hey, thanks so much for tuning into the presentation today. We are going to be covering insert unbelievable statement. Insert your incredible headline. Insert what it is that you know would make them go, whoa, I'm in the right place. So that's the big hook. Then what I like to do is I like to do what's called without statements, okay? And the without statements is I'm going to be explaining that they can do the thing that they're here to learn without having to do these extra things. Now, here's where it gets really clever. The without statements are pointing out things that you know that they don't have or don't want. So I'm going to say something like, we're going to be talking in the presentation today how you can build a client acquisition machine that is going to turn cold prospects into ready to buy hot buyers. And you're going to be able to do this without, and I'm going to list a few things, it's got to be true, but list a few things that they're going to be able to get that result without having to do. So without having to have expensive equipment, without having to have previous results, without having to have a massive email list, without needing to have loads of followers on social media. So I'm saying all these things that they're going, well, I want that thing, and I'm hearing that I can do it without all of these things that I either don't have or don't want. Okay, my attention has been piqued. I'm really quite excited by this. Now we have the luxury with a couple of extra steps in here, which you'll get on the framework here. But then we progress to your story. Some people start talking about their story, and it's a bad place to start. Because you've got to remember, an audience that has arrived for any one of your presentations, they're not there for you, right? They're there for them. They're there because they want to learn something from you, and they believe that you have the answers. And so we don't go straight to talking about us. We first make sure they understand that they're here for this result, that they can do it without these things. Then we have the luxury of getting into our story. You might share an origin story, you might share a positioning story, but a story nonetheless. Then I like to add in here success stories. So I'm going to share my story of having the problem, perhaps, and now I've found the solution and where my life is at right now. Then I'm going to share, if I have them, some results that maybe some of my students or some of my past clients have achieved to back up what I'm saying I've learned. And then, of course, there's a few more steps in here, but I'm going to focus on another one that I really like, which is the new you. So we're going to inspire them at this point, that we've hooked them with this big statement that's getting them excited. We've told them that they can do it without these things. Then we've shared our story that's creating inspiration. Then we're sharing success from other students that we've worked with that provides proof that what you do works. And the final thing we do is we inspire them to want what it is we're talking about. Now you might say, well, John, they're here obviously because they want it. But they might be coming at a 4 out of 10. 10 out of 10 would be they are fully motivated to find a solution again to whatever problem it is that you help people solve. They might know they've got the problem. They might believe there is a solution out there for them. They might start to feel inspired, but they might be a 4 out of 10 on inspiration. Maybe they've just come off the back of a bad experience. Someone else that told them that they could fix all their problems, and then it turned out to be a bunch of waffle, and they've been left in the lurch yet again. So we have to freshly inspire them that we want to have the new you, right? That you can have these results. And we say some things that get them caught up in why they should want this and why they would be excited by it. Again, it's all broken down on that framework. That is how you set the stage. Before we ever get into training, it does take about 10 or 15 minutes. But if you do this right, you will have an audience that are literally hanging on your every word as you go into the training section. Now, as we get into the training, we've got to understand what this wow, not how concept is all about. So to do that, I want to share a quick story with you. When I was first trying to learn webinar presentations and stage presentations and moving an audience into action, I was doing my first few presentations and I was teaching my best stuff. So for example, my first ever program was a YouTube training program, and I was teaching people how they could get their videos ranked and positioned on the first page of Google and YouTube. And so I would have a few training points in the presentation and I would teach them my best stuff, but I was assuming, well, if I only teach you my best stuff but within an hour, then of course you're going to want to buy my course that is 10, 15 hours and expands upon all the stuff that we've spoken about. That was the logic in my head. What actually happened was the complete opposite. I genuinely taught my audience some of my best stuff. I taught them how to research different keywords. I taught them how to record the videos. I taught them some backlinking strategies to get those videos improving their ranking in the search results. I made it clear that there was more that I could go into, but this is some of the stuff that would get them started. And then of course I made the offer to buy my program, and I had absolute crickets. No one was buying. I was so confused that then I asked them in the chat. I said, hey, and how many of you, by the way, have loved today's presentation? You've gotten so much value. And people were saying, best presentation I've ever been on. This has been awesome. I'm learning so much. This is incredible. I'm thinking, what is going on then? Why aren't you buying the program? It took me a little while to realize that what I had done is I had given my audience and myself a disservice. I'd done a disservice to my audience because I'd left them with a false sense of security. They didn't need to buy my program now because they felt they had enough to go ahead and take some action. And so they weren't buying my program because they were going, well, I've loved John's webinar. I think I've got enough to work with. I don't think I need to buy his program because I've got enough here to have a go. Well, of course, they don't have all the answers because there's so much more in my course. So I'm setting them up to fail. I've given them a false sense of security. And of course, I'm doing myself a disservice because no one's buying my stuff. What I was doing, and the mistake that I was making, is I was teaching people the how-tos. I was teaching them exactly how to do stuff, and then they weren't buying my stuff. So in the end, I switched it to wow-based content. Wow-based content is where you inspire people and genuinely teach them stuff, but they don't know exactly how to implement it. So for example, I might teach someone why keyword traffic is so valuable. I'll talk about how when someone goes to Google and searches for a very particular key phrase, they are so much later down the buying journey that they are literally saying, I want this right now. And I would compare that to Facebook traffic or YouTube traffic or other places where maybe they're just watching videos and could be interested. So the audience is going, wow, that makes sense. Wow, that's interesting. Wow, that's exciting. And what is then following is them saying, I think I might want to learn how to do that. So I'm going to go through a presentation. I'm going to teach them wow stuff. And the way that you need to remember this is they come to your free content for the wow and they buy your stuff for the how. So then what I do is I have 3 training points. I have training point 1, I have training point 2, and I have training point 3. Sometimes I'll go to training point 4, but I can typically get this done in 3 points. And what I do is I teach 3 things. And if you think about it, it's 30 minutes long. You're talking about something for 10 minutes each. If you're watching this and you're truly an expert, then you should be able to find 3 things about your topic that you could teach. But you teach the wow part of the process. And so for example, for training point number 1, I might talk about, for me, how great YouTube ads have been in my business. So when it comes to driving traffic and floods of it and being able to scale the business, I absolutely love YouTube ads, and here's why. They're amazing for this reason, and they work great for this, and you can target people like this. And so I'm giving them all these ideas. They're going, wow, 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 YouTube ads sound epic, but I have no idea how to launch one. Right? So I've given them the wow, not the how, but they still have tremendous value. Then I make sure that that leads to training point number 2. So I say, so after traffic, we need to know where we're sending that traffic. For me, it's a webinar presentation, and I might share a story about how I discovered webinars and things I had tried in the past that hadn't worked to reinforce that webinars are truly the answer. I'll talk about how awesome they are. I'll talk about how the retention rates. I'll talk about how you qualify people through a presentation in a way that a VSL or another funnel simply can't. So again, at the end of that, they're going, wow, 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 webinars sound amazing. I think that might be the piece that I'm missing. And then I might do a little something on sales. And I'll say, and then once you get all this amazing opportunity from your webinars, you need to know the right things to say to convert those people into clients. And I might talk about some wow-based topics to do with sales. And then I do this, and this is really important. I do something called the recap. And the recap is where I recap everything we've covered so far. And that's actually a really important part of this entire presentation framework. I learned this quite a number of years ago, and I've changed the way I do this ever since. When you're teaching amazing stuff, you've got to remember that most of your audience are only going to remember the last thing you spoke about. It's like they've been left with the feeling of this presentation all the way along. They're feeling excited, they're feeling engaged, they're feeling inspired. Like they've been left with a feeling, but very practically, they're only really remembering the last thing you said. Well, when you go into a call to action, which I realize I've lost a little bit of here, when you go into a call to action, you need to make sure that they are fully reminded of all of the incredible stuff that you specifically shared with them, so that we activate them to take the action in the next step. So I do a recap. And I say, so here's what we've covered so far. We spoke about this, and I do a quick recap of training point 1. Then we spoke about this, then we spoke about this. And then what I like to do is pull it all together to make it sound like a system. So it's like, and bringing all of this together. If you have all of this in your business, you will be absolutely unstoppable. You will have a client acquisition model and machine like you've never experienced before. If you're in the health industry, then you'll talk about the different things you spoke about and you'll recap it, that if all of that comes together, you'll be in the best shape of your life. Or maybe you're in the relationship counseling niche, or whatever the case may be. If you incorporate all of these different things, you will have the strongest relationship that you've ever experienced, or you'll finally be able to pull your marriage back together, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you're a business coach. Okay, we've talked about systems, we've talked about team building, talked about something else, and if you bring all of that together, it will give you outcome. So hopefully that's making sense. Really, really powerful concept there. So now we move on to the final section. We've set the stage, we've now taught them some great wow, not how content, and now there's an action that we want them to take. Now, for my clients and for me, it's often to book a call. It's not so much to buy something, it's to get on the calendar so we can have a sales conversation. And believe it or not, to do a really effective call to action, there's actually 11 things that you should do. Again, it's all outlined. This used to be a client resource. Whoops, I'm hitting our lights. This used to be a client resource. We now offer it as a free tool for those of you here on the YouTube channel. So do make use of this. There's 11 things that you should do. I'm going to focus on just a handful of them that do start to paint the full picture, okay? The first is I inspire change. And what I do here is very particular. I say to them, I do the recap, and then I say, so look, listen, if you've been on this webinar, if you've been listening to this content, and you're thinking to yourself, I need this, then we've got to make a change right now. And I inspire them to change. I'll say something like, you've got a decision right now. We're at a bit of a crossroads. You've learned all of this amazing new information, and you now get to decide if you go back to doing what you were doing before and nothing changes for you, or we embrace this new path, you lean into this new information, you put a bit of trust and faith in me, and I would love to help you. It would be a privilege to help you start to get those results. So we inspire that change. It's really important. Then I move to the invitation, and I let them know what this invitation is all about. So I'll point out the fact that if you would like to have a change in your life, then I would love the opportunity to have a chat with you and see if what we've got would be a good fit for you. And so you make it sound very casual, very soft, very comfortable. There is an invitation, but it comes with a bit of a caveat. And I'm going to tie two of these things together. I'm going to put offer tease, but then I'm also going to put pushback. Allow me to explain. What I do is I first do an offer tease. So I'll basically say, I've got this invitation, and if on that call, it seems like we're a good fit, I'm a good fit for you, you're a good fit for me, that we could potentially work quite well together, then I do have an offer. It's an incredible offer, and you tease the offer for a bit. You explain what it's like to be a client. You talk about what they get, how it works, the resources that you have, and start to really get them excited about the offer that you've got. But then you incorporate a bit of pushback, and you make it clear to them that there isn't a guarantee they can come into the program. You push them off. You don't work with that many clients. You've got a bit of a wait list. This is a very relaxed conversation to just see if we're a good fit. And if I feel like I could help you, then I might invite you in. So you give them that bit of pushback. That's made a world of difference to the quality of the conversations that I'm having on the phone. And then of course, there's a few more steps that we can do. It's all on the framework, but the final one that I do is just final chance. And in that final chance, it's my closing words. It's the way in which I summarize the entire presentation. I remind them what they came here for. I remind them of the biggest things we covered. I remind them of this opportunity. I inspire some more change. And I make it clear that this is our final chance. We're about to close down the presentation. The training's about to end, or the webinar's about to finish, or the event's about to conclude, whatever the case may be, wherever it is that you're delivering this presentation, it's my final encouragement for them to take some massive action. So that's my framework from start to finish. I have made tens of millions personally with this presentation framework. I've done up to 1.6 million in one presentation on one stage with this framework. It's so powerful, and now it's in your hands, and I hope it's been helpful for you. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to click the link in the description box. Grab the proper framework, breaks this all down. I hope you enjoy it, I hope you implement it, and do let me know if you get some great results. If you want more of this epic training, check out this video right here, and I hope to see you on the channel again very soon.